Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm reacting to another Milena Ciciotti video. This one's from about a year ago and it's about modesty, and it's definitely the most confusing video I've ever reacted to. And I actually feel like my outfit today kind of fits in with the theme of modesty. It's pretty modest, although, you know what? I don't think upside down crosses count as modest to most evangelicals, so scratch that. So her video is titled, "I've been avoiding this ... modesty." And girl, you should have kept avoiding this topic because your takes in this are not good, and half the time they don't even make any sense. So just right off the bat here, something that I'm noticing is that Milena looks a lot older and a lot more mature in this video from a year ago than she does in her more recent uploads. Honestly, in her more recent videos, she looks like a little girl playing dress up. She's usually wearing these very flowy, prairie-like dresses. Her hair is kind of disheveled and she always has these like really big bows. She wears very minimal makeup, if no makeup at all. It's really giving this air of innocence and childlike whimsy. Now, I believe that people should wear what they want, and I'm not at all condemning her for her outfit choices, but at the same time, I can't help but notice that the further she's fallen into tradwifery on her channel, the more childlike she appears. And I don't think that this is a coincidence. In tradwifery, wives are kind of lumped together with the children under the authority of the husband, and their role is really limited to the home, and they're not deemed as capable as their husband when it comes to things like leadership or decision making. Tradwifery infantilizes women, so it's really no surprise to me that this infantilization is manifesting itself in Milena's appearance. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the actual video.
I have always known, I don't even want to use the word modest, okay? Because I feel like that word just doesn't really sit well with people, because I think it's been really overused, really abused. It has also been used to just be really judgmental. And
she doesn't want to use the word modest, but then titles her video Modesty. This is just the first of many instances throughout this video that we'll see Milena just completely contradict herself. Yeah, we're in for a rough ride. Milena is right that the word modesty doesn't sit well with a lot of people, and this isn't just because this word has been overused or used to pass judgment, although it has been, but because the promulgation of modesty culture is a direct precursor to things like abuse and sexual assault. At its core, modesty culture promotes the idea that women's bodies are inherently sexual, that they're things that need to be covered up lest the men stumble. In cases of assault, this idea is often used to shift blame away from the perpetrator and onto the victim, i.e. she was asking for it because look at what she was wearing. We'll see this more as we continue watching, but even though Milena seems to be aware that bad outcomes are associated with modesty culture, she doesn't quite get that the concept of modesty itself is harmful. This is common among conservative Christians. They often see problems as the fault of sinful individuals and never as a result of flawed systems. The reality that Milena has yet to grapple with, and probably never will, is that the problem isn't a few bad apples improperly applying the concept of modesty. The problem is with the concept of modesty itself.
My prayer with this video is for you not to leave feeling like you haven't done enough or that you can't do this, but I want you to leave feeling this video with some type of conviction, but also just knowing that you can do it too, and that I'm not here to tell you that you can't. I'm not here to tell you that you haven't been doing this, or that if you don't do something different, then you are bad or whatever. That is not my intention at all with this video.
Okay, I'm honestly not completely sure what she means here. So she said that she wants this video to leave people with some sense of conviction, meaning that she's hoping that viewers watch this video and then develop at least some type of belief in modesty and then apply it to their lives. But also she said that she's not trying to tell you to do anything different. I really don't know what to take from that because these things seem very contradictory to me. So there's this common theme that I've seen with Christian YouTubers that they tend to film their videos very stream of consciousness, and they don't seem to ever really script or go off of an outline or bullet points. And I think that this results in them having videos that are very vague and contradictory, where the overall message tends to get very obscured. This is something I've mentioned before, specifically in regards to Paul and Morgan. I've seen them do this a lot. And my advice, not that I'm any expert or like the queen of YouTube or anything, but I would suggest at least having an outline to go off of, because, and we'll see this later in the video, if you don't, you tend to contradict yourself or not make any sense, because it's not natural to be speaking to a camera.
Because I feel like I have definitely been on the receiving end of that a majority of my life. And so I'm well aware of just how yucky that makes people feel, and how that actually doesn't lead people to want to do anything different, how it actually quite literally turns people away from that. And so that's just like where I've been at for a minute.
Yeah, I've definitely been on the receiving end of that too. Most of you guys know, but I actually grew up as a missionary kid, and in the missionary community that I grew up in, modesty culture and purity culture were huge. I actually have an entire video about my experience growing up in that culture if you guys want to check it out. But yeah, I've definitely been scolded many times for not dressing modestly. I don't necessarily agree, though, that telling women that they're bad for not dressing modestly makes them want to do the opposite. I think shame and guilt are highly effective methods of keeping people in line, especially when you're telling them that if they don't do this, that they're literally pissing off the most supreme being in the entire universe. But it doesn't matter how you approach this topic of modesty. It doesn't matter if you're being really harsh and telling people that they're bad for what they're wearing, or if you go with a softer approach and you're trying to be kind. You shouldn't be telling people what they should do with their bodies, period.
Anyway, I'm trying to figure out a different word that I could use for modesty, but let me just say, I'll just refer to it more as a different way of showing yourselves, a different way of presenting ourselves, because modesty goes way beyond just clothing. Modesty goes from the heart and who you are and your heart and how that reflects Christ. And it's not just for women too. There are some very immodest things that men can do as well. That, sure, there could be some immodest things that men wear, but also just the way that they act and behave and the things that they do and the flashy things they show or don't show.
Okay, if modesty is also for men, why is the target audience for videos like these always women? Why are there never any dedicated videos or books about modesty that are specifically for men? I don't think I've ever seen that, but I've seen tons of videos and books about modesty specifically for women.
I just want to kind of just have this type of conversation, and hopefully this is received from you, and yeah, you're just kind of open to hear it. So I have been reading through Peter, 1 Peter and 2 Peter, but I was reading 1 Peter 3:3, and it says this: "Do not let your adoring be external, the braiding of hair and the putting on of gold jewelry or the clothing you wear, but let your adoring be the hidden person of the heart, with the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which in God's sight is very precious."
So every video of Melena's that I've really ever responded to, I've always had to double check the verses she cites, because she almost always misquotes them. And yeah, she misquoted the verse. The verse says, "Do not let your adorning," not adoring. Obviously, this is a small mistake and it doesn't change the overall meaning of the verse, but it just really grinds my gears that Melena promotes herself on her channel as this spiritual mentor, but yet she almost always misquotes the Bible. In some cases, she's almost completely altered the meaning of the verse by misquoting it. Now, I'm not saying she can't make a mistake. Like, I've made plenty of mistakes in my videos, but it's just almost every time.
And I really love that ending part where it says, "A gentle and quiet spirit, it's pleasing to the Lord, and it's precious to him." Because I guess let's just kind of rewind a little bit, because obviously I have been a Christian for a minute. I grew up in the church. Once I got married, I've had this YouTube channel for a minute. But I would not say that I dressed modestly. There were times where, like, sure, there were some outfits that I did, but I think I just had a really messed up idea of what it meant to dress immodestly. And I still think a lot of people do, and I think I'm still working through that. But that's, like, the best thing about the Lord, is that he's constantly, like, sanctifying us and constantly working through us. And so I got to a point where I was even comfortable posting, like, bathing suit photos and stuff. Not to say that if you do that you're not a great person, but I'm just saying I have done these things, okay? Like, I have been there, I have done that. I have worn whatever I felt like wearing. I got to this point where I was like, you know, I know this probably isn't the way I should be living out my life. I shouldn't be okay with this, and I feel like I should feel some level of conviction, and I didn't, and that was scary to me. And so I quite literally prayed, like, Lord, convict me of this. Like, Lord, help me feel convicted, because I think there's a problem here. I'm a mother of 3. I should not be okay with certain pieces that I had in my wardrobe. Like, I shouldn't really feel comfortable wearing those things. Now, again, I'm gonna keep saying this, but if you are comfortable with that, I'm not trying to shame you for that. I'm just speaking from my experience, and I just felt like the way that I was dressing was not representing Christ well. And so I really was just praying that he convict me of that, and he did.
All right, so there's a lot to dissect here. First off, she cites 1 Peter 3:3-4, which really has nothing to do with modesty and the way that evangelicals think of modesty today. These verses don't say anything about how much skin women should be showing. These verses are talking about not flaunting wealth. They're saying that you shouldn't try to embellish yourself by wearing fancy, expensive clothing or by wearing gold jewelry, but that you should embellish yourself with a gentle and quiet spirit. So, I mean, I don't know why she read these verses and then went on this big tangent about how she used to post bathing suit photos, as if these verses back up the idea that that is wrong, because they don't. Again, she kind of contradicted herself when she said that if you do post bathing suit photos, that she's not saying that you're not a great person. But right before that, she was talking about how she knew she wasn't supposed to be doing that. She shouldn't be living her life that way, and that it's not honoring Christ well. This sends a really confusing message, in my opinion. Like, is she saying that it's sinful and not Christ-like to post bathing suit photos, or not? Lastly, I don't really understand the whole I knew I should be convicted but didn't bit, because if you knew that you should be convicted, isn't that the same thing as actually being convicted? To me, it sounds like she's adding this extra layer of shame to this situation that it really doesn't need. She's saying that not only is she guilty of doing something wrong, but she's also guilty of apparently not feeling guilty. This is one of the problems that I have with evangelicalism, is that everything is about guilt and shame, especially for women. It's like, not only should you feel ashamed for not doing something, but you should also feel ashamed for not thinking or feeling the right thing.
I slowly just started going through my closet and just seeing pieces that if it looked too much like a bathing suit or something that my husband would immediately want to take off of me, then maybe I shouldn't wear it outside. And honestly, I feel like that rule works really well. And I even had this conversation with my husband too, because this was another thing that, like, once I got married, my husband loved when I would wear more appealing, more cute, tight little things, you know? And so, of course, I'd want to wear that for him, obviously. But then I think the fine line was, like, I can still wear those things for him, but, like, in our home, I don't necessarily need to be wearing them out in public. Kind of with just that in mind, I've been kind of just, like, working through and figuring out what do I think is appropriate for me to be wearing and what do I not think is appropriate for me to be wearing. And I think this is going to vary for each person, and each stage is going to vary too, you know?
So when she says that she got rid of anything that would make her husband want to take it off of her, the implication is that wearing anything out in public that could cause a man other than her husband to lust after her is wrong and sinful. She's not directly saying it, but the implication is, don't be a stumbling block for your brother. She's not using this cliche, but the meaning is still there. This is so messed up and harmful, because this idea ultimately leads to victim blaming in the cases of assault. She's saying that women merely existing in their bodies and not hiding it are partly responsible for the harmful actions and thoughts of others. And here's the thing, no matter what women wear, men will, unfortunately, objectify women. Telling women to cover up their bodies is not going to fix this issue. What we can do to address this problem is to teach people, specifically men, about consent, teach them that women's bodies don't merely exist for their pleasure, and teach them that there doesn't have to be something inherently sexual to feminine presenting bodies. It should not be on women to try and control the thoughts of men or prevent them from harming them. And again, Milena's messaging here is so confusing. She claims she's not trying to shame anyone, but at the same time, it's implied that wearing certain things is shameful. Like, girl, you can't tell people that you're not trying to shame them or that it varies from person to person, but then also tell this entire story about how you got rid of clothes that would make your husband want to take them off of you. Like, the shame is implied. You don't have to directly say it for it to still be there.
Like right now, I feel very comfortable in the things that I'm wearing, but it is also winter, okay? It is winter, it is cold here. I want to be bundled up and wearing turtlenecks. Am I gonna be wanting to be wearing a turtleneck in the summer? Probably not. And so I am trying to think of different ways that I can still breastfeed my baby and still not get super hot out, but also not show as much skin. So I guess I kind of just wanted to have this conversation. Anyway, this last part here of 1 Peter 3, the 3:4, where it talks about a gentle and quiet spirit, which is pleasing to the Lord. I've just kind of been reflecting on that. Like, what does it even look like to be gentle and quiet? And I feel like just, first of all, when I think of the word quiet, I'm not necessarily thinking of like one that is never speaking or one that is gently speaking. Sure, it can, but I think it also can mean someone who is gentle with their words and very selective of their words, but also very selective of the things that they wear and don't wear. That's kind of what I've been working at, of being very selective of the things that I say and don't say, the way that I speak and don't speak.
I think it's generally good to be selective and gentle with your words. But how does this connect to what you wear? Again, this verse is not talking about how much skin women should show. It's like she's taking this modern concept of modesty, which is really a product of purity culture and evangelicalism, and then trying to find a biblical backing for it when one doesn't really exist. The writers of the Bible had no concept of 21st century clothing and didn't have any concept of modesty and the way that evangelicals think of it. So, I mean, I think she's really just grasping at straws here.
This was the other thing. And I feel like the Lord's just slowly really convicting me of these little tiny things. He calls us to be set apart from the world. He calls us to not look like the world. And so if I'm dressing like the world, isn't that being a part of the world in some capacity? Isn't that like, if I go out and I look just like everyone else, well then how am I supposed to shine this light? How am I being different from what the world is doing? Like, if he literally calls us to be set apart, if I'm going to look just like them in what I'm wearing, it just doesn't make sense. And so I feel like that was the first thing that the Lord really showed to me in this process of convicting me.
Am I wrong, or does she look pretty worldly in this video? Like, nothing about what she's wearing strikes me as being like disconnected from the world or from current fashion trends. If I saw someone on the street that's dressed the way that she's dressed, I wouldn't think twice about it. I wouldn't peg them for, being a fundamentalist Christian. I never really understood the whole being set apart from the world thing. That's such a big part of evangelicalism, because evangelicalism itself is a sect of Christianity that is directly rooted in Reagan-era politics and 50s-era culture. I mean, it's literally a Christian movement spawned by worldly culture. If she truly doesn't want to be a part of the world in any capacity when it comes to clothing, then shouldn't she avoid any retailers that aren't specifically evangelical Christian? Actually, scratch that, because those retailers probably purchase their designs or their fabrics from manufacturers in Asia. So if she really wants to not be part of the world in any capacity, then she basically has to make her own clothes from scratch. Do we see how she's arbitrarily drawing the line here?
I just feel weird talking about this. It feels strange to talk about this because I feel like I still have so much to do and so much to get better at. And that's why I wanted to make this video, because maybe you're at this point too, where you're like, you know what? I feel like I just need to kind of change. Something's got to change and I don't really know what it is. So maybe this is something that you want to do too. For me, a couple of things that I just practically cut out of my wardrobe that have immensely helped is I got rid of all my crop tops. I do have some cropped-ish ones, but when I wear them with like higher jeans, there's not belly exposed. And if there is belly exposed, I actually have been feeling really uncomfortable with that, which is so weird because my entire pregnancy, my whole belly was out all the time. I mean, I feel like it's slightly different, but like I remember just like not really caring if you could see my midriffs, but now anytime that I can see my belly, I just feel uncomfortable. I feel like I need to hide, and not in a shameful hiding way, but I feel like I could put a tank top underneath it, and so it's not, you can't see my belly.
How do you hide in a shameless way? I mean, isn't shame kind of just implicit to that statement? Especially in light of what she's already said about feeling like she wasn't representing Christ well by wearing certain things. Like, you can't just follow up these controversial statements with, but not in a shameful way. I mean, it's giving, I'm not racist, but, and then like following that up with a really racist comment.
Honestly, I think dressing modestly is really beautiful because you have to be really creative. I think it's one thing to just throw on a bunch of clothes, but then it's another thing to throw on a bunch of clothes and style it really beautifully and make a full outfit. And so for me, I actually feel like it's been quite of a challenge and really nice to be like, how can I dress in a way that is going to be pleasing to the Lord and is going to take the attraction off of me? Because that was the other thing. The biggest thing that I get out of modesty, and maybe this is something that might help you understand it a little bit better, how can I get the attention off of me and what the way that I look like and get the attention on the smile on my face that radiates the joy that the Lord has given me?
I want to get the attention off of me by having people look at my smile. Like, what? Isn't that still drawing attention to yourself? Like, people aren't going to like look at the smile on your face and then immediately think of the Christian God. Like, that's not how that works. Also, this sounds a lot like telling women that they need to smile more. Telling women to smile, especially in the workplace, is a way for men to feel like they're in control of women's emotions. And it's a way to make women appear more submissive and like stereotypically feminine. Nobody should be forced to smile if they don't feel like smiling, and you especially shouldn't be forced to smile to appease some deity. Like, God does not need you to run PR for him. All he needs you to do is be who you are and live your life the way that you feel is best.
How can I just get people to not like look at me, take the attention off of me and put the attention to the Lord? And so that is just something that I keep thinking back at. It's like, how can I just, even just modesty, I feel like even just big elaborate things, like how can I get the attention off of what I look like and what the Lord is like? And so I feel like, again, this is just something that is totally up to you of like what that could be.
Here's the thing. We all need external validation sometimes. Believing that you shouldn't have any attention on you and that other women shouldn't have any attention on them is harmful and will lead to feelings of inadequacy and rejection. Receiving external validation is a very necessary and healthy thing as long as it's balanced with the knowledge that you're not better than anyone else and that other people need external validation as well.
It's hard, you guys. I love, and that, okay, not to say that like suddenly because I'm going to start dressing more modestly doesn't mean I'm going to like throw fashion out the window. That's not what I'm going to be doing, because I still do think that's a fun and creative way to express yourself, but I feel like it definitely is a lot harder. So I'm going to link this girl's page down below. I found her on Instagram. She's so cute. She actually did 30 days of modesty and it was really cute. And I just really like her outfits. Now, here's the part where I feel like I'm still struggling with. I like to wear jeans, and I know some people jeans are immodest and some people literally just wear skirts and dresses. And so this is something that I've been kind of working through, because is it practical to just wear skirts and dresses? And I've tried that and it's really cold where I live, and no matter how many fleece things I put underneath, like I still get really cold. I'm just kind of working through that.
So from her videos and her Instagram, it does seem like Milena has transitioned to just wearing dresses and skirts. I don't see her wearing pants anymore, and it does kind of make me a bit sad that it seems like she's prioritizing modesty over being like comfortable and wearing things that are functional. It is still winter right now, so I'm hoping that she's not freezing to death by just wearing dresses and skirts.
So I'm just kind of talking out loud. This is not going to be the first and last video that I make on this topic. I think this is going to be a reoccurring thing that I come back to and revisit as the Lord brings things to my attention. And so I don't want to say it's up to the person, because I do think that when we wake up in the morning, when I go and spend time with the Lord, every like little decision that I make throughout the day, I feel like I'm in constant communication with him.
Wait, what? She's saying that it's not up to the person, but didn't earlier she say that it's going to vary from person to person and that she's not telling you what to do? Like, guys, I'm so confused.
Just as simple as something as like picking out my outfit and what I'm going to be wearing that day. Sure, it can be comfortable. Sure, like it's not, I'm not saying that it can't. And I'm not also saying that you can't speak on modesty or you're not qualified to be dressed modestly until you're only wearing skirts and dresses. That's not what I'm saying either, because I think there are some jeans and pants nowadays that are also very modest and don't show a lot of skin and aren't very huggy. And so I think it's just like a range of things. I feel like I'm also trying to dress a little bit more feminine too, which is something that I feel like I've always kind of struggled with. I love wearing dresses in the summertime and I feel like dresses are really feminine, but there's something about just like more loungy, unfitted stuff that I really like too. And so yeah, it's just kind of like this balance of finding something that's modest but also feminine but doesn't show as much skin, because I feel like feminine things tend to be paired with more sexual things as well, like just showing more cleavage and just showing more of the curves and stuff. And so I'm trying to find like this balance of like not showing as much, but also keeping it more of a feminine touch.
Okay, so the problem here isn't that feminine clothing is often paired with sexual things like cleavage or showing curves. The problem here is that Milena sees things like cleavage and curves as being inherently sexual, and they're not. Just like how not having curves or not having cleavage doesn't make someone completely incapable of expressing sexuality. Evangelicalism sexualizes women when they preach this idea that feminine presenting bodies need to be covered up because their primary purpose is for the sexual gratification of men.
Okay, now in regards to modesty, in 1 Peter 5:5, let me just read it and then we can elaborate. But it says, likewise, you who are younger, be subjects to the elder. Clothe yourself, all of you, with humility towards one another, for God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And so he's just talking about humbling ourselves and clothing yourselves in humility.
So again, this verse has nothing to do with how much skin you show. To add a little bit of context, the verses right before this call for church elders to not be domineering over other members of the church and to act as good role models. So I exhort the elders among you, as a fellow elder and a witness of the sufferings of Christ, as well as a partaker in the glory that is going to be revealed, shepherd the flock of God that is among you, exercising oversight, not under compulsion, but willingly, as God would have you, not for shameful gain, but eagerly, not domineering over those in your charge, but by being examples to the flock. And when the chief shepherd appears, you will receive the unfading crown of glory. The verse that Milena quoted is basically saying that just as church elders aren't domineering, the younger people in the church should also show humility. Just because the verse says clothe yourself in humility doesn't mean that it's actually talking about clothing. It's just a figure of speech.
So again, I feel like modesty goes way beyond the clothes, way beyond that, because it's even just like, I feel like you could be dressing in the most modest clothes possible, but your heart and the way that you act towards others and just your whole spirit and the way that you are could be very immodest.
Okay, so if modesty really isn't about clothing and you could be dressed as modestly as possible, but still be immodest in the way that you act, why has she spent like a large part of this video talking about clothing? I think this is just shifting the goalpost.
The biggest thing about this is that you really cannot tell someone what they're doing or not doing as modest or immodest. And I know that's really hard to even kind of wrap our minds around. Now, as someone who's received the other end of people just constantly just telling me what I'm wearing is immodest, it was really frustrating because it was never from a place of love. It was never from a place of grace. And so the biggest thing I can implore you is to just worry about yourself and your immodesty or immodesty or whatever. Like, worry about how you are portraying yourself, because for me the biggest thing was seeing those who do dress modestly do it in such a beautiful way, in a non-judgmental way, that it made me feel, wow, like, okay, I really feel convicted about this. Like, this is really beautifully done, and this, she just looks so beautiful, and I can just see the Lord in her and through her. I want that for myself. I would say that would be just like my biggest prayer for anyone who feels the need to constantly call out these things. And it's not to say that I'm not stumbling on my words here, but I feel like I have to be really careful about what I say. But people just tend to be really mean in the way that they say things. And so truly, if you feel like you have to say something, just pray about it first, and pray that the Lord talk to those who are closest to them first before.
So wait, at the beginning of this clip, she was saying that you can't tell anyone if they're being immodest or modest. But now she's saying that if you feel like someone's being immodest, that you should pray about it and hope that somebody closer to them talks to them. You can't have it both ways. You can't say that you can't tell anyone that they're being immodest, but then 30 seconds later say that it's okay to tell someone they're being immodest as long as you're close to them. Like, this isn't just shifting the goalpost. Like, the goalpost is all over the fucking field. You also can't tell people that they should just stay in their own lane and only worry about themselves, but then make an entire video where you talk about modesty and talk about how you aren't proud of the things that you used to wear because they weren't honoring Christ. Like, you might not be directly saying don't wear this or don't wear that, but it's heavily implied. And I think this is partly because Milena is really playing the fence and doesn't want to take sides, but that kind of means that her whole video doesn't make any sense.
Everyone gets sanctified differently. Everyone gets convicted differently. And so for one person, it might quite literally be like an overnight thing where they're like, wow, I literally will never wear a pair of jeans again. Like, I feel so strongly convicted wearing those that I just know that I can't. And so they have like a 160 of a change.
Oh no. I guess she accidentally said 160, but then she put text on the screen where she tried to correct herself, but she still got it wrong. It's 180. If you had a 360-degree change, that would mean that you're back to where you started from.
Whereas someone else, it is like a slow process of eliminating things and changing things. And so I feel like that's kind of where I've been at. Another thing to note is body type and body shape. There might be some people who are able to get away with like really, really low cut things because you can't see anything, and others who can't get away with it because they just have a larger bust or have curvier hips, and that's a thing. I feel like it is just a very unique thing to each person.
I hate this take so much. Growing up, I was always a little bit curvier than a lot of the other girls, and I would get in trouble for wearing things that I would see other girls at my school wearing and not getting in trouble for. There was this one girl at my school, and the school I went to was mostly missionary kids. It wasn't completely missionary kids, but I would say like 90%, and all the teachers were also missionaries. There was this one girl who kind of had like a larger chest, and she was literally told that she had to wear shirts that were like 3 times bigger than her actual size so that her chest would be covered. Yeah, it was crazy. This take is truly awful, and it's just punishing women for the crime of just existing in their body. Again, women, no matter what their body happens to look like, are not in charge of the thoughts and actions of other people.
I really just hope that this video is encouraging to some capacity. I know it may be all over the place, and this won't be the first or the last time.
All over the place is an understatement. This video just like straight up doesn't make any sense.
I talk about this, but as I've just had more kids and I've had daughters, I really want them to look at me and see me for me and not like the skin that I'm showing or not showing. Like, I just feel like the biggest thing is just being an example for my girls and being an example for my son of what he could look for in a wife and what is beautiful to him.
No, just no. I mean, I think it's great that she wants to be a good role model for her children, but I think being a good role model includes teaching them about things like consent, both how to give consent and also how to receive consent. It looks like teaching her children that they're not responsible for the harmful actions or thoughts of others simply because they exist in their bodies. She should be teaching her girls that they don't need to be ashamed of their bodies and that their bodies don't just exist for the sexual gratification of their future husbands. I would hope that she would emphasize these things, especially the concept of consent, rather than focusing on this harmful and outdated idea of modesty.
And here's the thing, the world just overly sexualizes, and overly everything is just like so over the top and so immodest. Even just not talking about skin, just like over elaborate things and this, the bigger and better, and this, it's just like so much stuff.
The world over-sexualizes women. I mean, you're literally the one that said that cleavage and having curves is inherently sexual. Evangelicalism over-sexualizes women when they preach that feminine presenting bodies need to be covered. I do agree that we live in a very consumerist culture that's very obsessed with everything being bigger and better, but evangelicalism has a lot to do with that. A lot of evangelicals advocate for basically unrestrained capitalism, and evangelicalism has really become indistinguishable from conservative right-wing talking points.
Again, I'm going to say this over and over again. I have not arrived. I don't think I ever will. You don't need to tell me the things I'm still doing correctly. I'm well aware of those things, okay? And the thing is that it is just a slow process. And again, I just kept telling the Lord, like, I don't want to do this video. Like, I don't want to talk about this because I'm well aware of like how immodest I have been in the past, and I'm not proud of that. But the Lord was just saying, like, I know.
I mean, I don't think that you shouldn't have made this video because you're still not modest enough. I think you shouldn't have made this video because you don't need to be telling other people what to do with their bodies. And it doesn't matter how much you say that you're not shaming them or that you're not telling people what to do. that's still very much implied in the things that you say. And you have said that it's not up to the person. So it's like you are kind of doing what you don't want other people to do to you.
That's why I want you to do it. And it's so funny because all throughout scripture, like, it's so obvious that the Lord uses the ones who are the most broken and uses the ones that like the tax collector, he uses the ones that we think are the most like unholy and most the worst at these things. And he completely changes them and changes their story.
Ugh, this is another thing that I hate about evangelicalism is that it teaches people, and I feel like it especially teaches women this, that they're broken and that God is the only one that can fix them and that they can't do it on their own, and etc.
Find yourself in the similar shoes where I was, where I just didn't feel conviction and I felt like I should have. Just pray about it. Like, I'm literally telling you guys, pray about everything. Pray about everything and just like be in communication with him, because as soon as I prayed that, he really just started to show me what it means to look different from the world in every aspect, and how the way I dressed just didn't look different from the world. I'm still struggling with workout clothes. Like, for me, like leggings. I go to an all-girls Pilates class. There's no women in there. So it's like, do I just wear something so it covers up my butt? Do I wear a longer t-shirt? Do I wear sweatpants instead now? But then it gets hot. Like, these are things that I'm still working through and I'm still trying to figure out. Because even though, and this was the other thing, modesty is not about just people of the opposite sex. I think it goes to women of the same sex too. So like, I want to look modest in front of other women. The other thing that I kept feeling like I kept saying is like, well, I'm just like, I'm in front of other girls, like it's fine. But I really don't feel like it's fine anymore. And I will link this video down below that I follow this other girl who has done it. I think she did a really beautiful job explaining it. But women are so much kinder and nicer to each other when they don't feel as threatened by each other or feel the need to compare each other to each other. And this is so true. And so when you dress modestly and it's not about you, they don't really feel like they need to compare to you, and they don't really feel threatened by you, and they don't really feel like there's a competition, and they feel like you could be buddies. And so I feel like if I'm just constantly just taking the attention off of me, and if I'm pointing it back to the Lord, and it kind of just eliminates this whole thing of comparison. It kind of eliminates this whole thing of not feeling the need to compare and look and be like, you know?
Oh, okay. So she thinks that she needs to dress modestly so that other women aren't jealous of her. Got it. I really can't help but feel like that was a bit of a brag on her part. But also, it's very clear that the environment that she's in is very heteronormative, because she doesn't even entertain the possibility that women could be attracted to other women. I feel like also what she said was just like a very immature way of handling this situation. You know what's another way to eliminate comparison? Promoting the idea that women, no matter what their bodies happen to look like, are all beautiful. It doesn't matter what size you are. Everybody is beautiful and deserves to show off their body if they want to. Everyone deserves to feel comfortable in their own skin, and nobody should feel like they have to hide their body so they're not making other people feel some type of way. Also, if your body happens to make someone else feel jealous, guess what? You're not responsible for the thoughts or feelings of other people by just existing in your body. That's something for them to work through. That's not something that you're responsible for.
I hope that you guys be in prayer for me and be in prayer for one another and what it means like to be modest in every aspect of our lives. Yeah, I don't really know how to close out this video because I want people to leave encouraged, not discouraged. So I hope that is what you got out of this. But I love you guys, and I will see you in my next video.
I mean, I'm not discouraged. I'm just like incredibly confused. So to wrap things up, I think this video is one of the purest examples I've ever seen of cognitive dissonance. I mean, I think that you can literally see the cognitive dissonance hanging in the air. I do think that Milena, whether she's aware of this or willing to accept this, has taken on some of the messaging of feminism. She knows that it's not right to be telling women what they can or cannot wear. I mean, she has experienced this firsthand, and she knows how horrible it can be, which is why she repeated in her video so many times that she's not telling people what to do and that this can vary from person to person. At the same time, though, she's still holding on to this idea of modesty and does believe that God has objective standards for how women should dress, which is why her video is so full of contradictions and doesn't have a clear or cohesive message. Honestly, I think this video is potentially more dangerous than videos that just directly tell you what modesty should look like, because It's a lot easier to reject something when you at least know what that something is. Milena is effectively saying that it's up to individual women to interpret God's will when it comes to modesty, but also if they happen to interpret God's will incorrectly, then they can be held accountable. This is like forcing people to play a game where they not only have to guess what the rules are, but if they happen to guess the rules incorrectly, they automatically lose. I don't think that Milena intended to do this. I don't think that it's malicious. I just think that she has so much cognitive dissonance when it comes to certain aspects of her religious practice. The Bible, like I said, doesn't say anything about how much skin women should show. It just doesn't. I think that evangelicals like to prop up verses like 1 Peter 3:3-4, because they think that it backs up their very modern conception of modesty. But all it really does is reveal how little their belief system is actually based on the Bible and how much their belief system is influenced by outside culture. It sounds like they're very much of the world, am I right? Thank you so much for watching, and a huge thank you to my patrons who help make these videos possible. If you like this video, please be sure to subscribe and ring the bell. If you'd like to follow me on social media, my Instagram is Taylor_the_antibot. And if you'd like to support this channel financially, a link to my Patreon will be down in the description, and I'll see you on the next one. Say bye!